this woman is beautiful and she's fun. Don't Google beautiful, fun stepmom. Right? Please don't do it on a company device. That's part of my prep here. So, but I met her, and given what Greta said yesterday, and I firmly believe Greta's still communicating with Becky, I have 3 thank yous that I want to pass on to Becky. The first one is she was an absolutely amazing grandmother. And she would pull our boys aside. She was great at one-on-one time, like creating some sort of urgency or plan that, like, you're the special one, we're going to go to the farmer's market, or you're the special one that we're going to do this or that. And spoiling them a little bit in that moment in time, but she was incredible about it. And when I really fully realized how incredible she was at it, was I distinctly remember a day when our kids were probably roughly 8, 10, 12. And I threw out the term step-grandmother. And it was like, unleash the hounds. And it was fascinating to me. I was like, they have such a strong, that is so powerful. And I thought that was really cool. So I wanted to thank Becky for that, number one. I also want to thank Becky, and I'm betting that no one in the room actually knows this one. When I entered the Egge clan, there's some like cult-like features to this clan. And one of the things that I realized was that if Carl, and we'll get to him in a minute, if Carl says we're going to do something, and it could be, we're going to go rob a bank, all 4 girls are loading the guns and they're picking their masks. It's kind of crazy time, and it was very unsettling to me, thinking maybe I don't want to rob a bank at this stage in my life. And I could look at Becky and there'd be this silent communication where she kind of raised her eyebrows and nod, and okay, there's one sane person in the room. And so I want to thank Becky for that, for sure, because I felt much more safe. And then the third thing I want to thank her for is, and this is a thank you to Carl too, is modeling a relationship that they gave me the firmest example I'd ever seen of how a great relationship is like a puzzle where you're putting together different aspects of people, that the people don't have to be mirror images of each other, but you're putting together different pieces to create something that's functional, stronger, and better. And so I want to give you 3 examples that I want you all to think about. And I want you to think about these sentences in the context of them, right? So let's say you're sitting around. It's 25 years ago, and Carl calls you, and he says, I got a new boat. I've hooked up the engine myself. And I want to go do some fast, exciting things. And I safety checked it myself. If in that sentence you change just the last portion to, and Becky safety checked it herself, the context totally changes, right? You go from something that you're probably not going to survive. Just something that's totally safe and like you're going to feel just fine. You're going to have fun. The other one I would say is that if Carl has a term that I just still I can't get it out of my head, and I always bring it up to people and they just can't even believe it. But so Carl, when it gets to be around 5 o'clock, if they're at Bass Lake, Carl would say, "Hey girls, come on, let's get ready. It's time for cock meal." Just let that sink in for a minute. 4 daughters. Let's associate first drink of the day with something called cock meal. I don't know what that would have looked like without Becky. But when you throw Becky into that, you have all this amazing food, and she made it seem, again, much more like normal family activity with great food, great everything. And I think food would be the last point I would make, is if Carl were to call you and say, "I've sourced and cooked some food. Do you want to come eat it?" Like literally run for the hills, right? It might still be in its plastic packaging. If he said, "Becky has sourced and cooked some food. Do you want to come eat it?" The whole context changes. And I think that to me, that was the greatest lesson from both Becky and Carl, was like how one person's involvement in the exact same activity totally changes your context entirely. So I would please let Becky know. I would thank her for all of that, and I wish I could or should have done that, but it meant an enormous amount. So I don't know who's going next.
Hello everyone. I'm glad to be here with all of you, remembering and honoring Becky together. I'm Brandy Mimi, and I was one of the very lucky McAllister students who got to work for Carl Egge Inc. when I was in college, over 20 years ago now. I have 3 sisters who attended McAllister, and 2 of them, Mindy and Laura, also work for Carl and Becky and are here tonight. We worked at the Egge house, and I started there when Erica was a senior in high school and Greta was starting high school. So it was a great perk of the job to be able to be around their family and their wonderful home environment. Another huge perk of the job is that frequently we got to work at their many parties that Becky and Carl hosted at their house. As Gretchen mentioned yesterday in her remembrance of Becky, being at an Egge dinner party meant you knew you were going to have a fun night with interesting people, Carl questions, and there'd be amazing food cooked by Becky. When I think of Becky, so many positive attributes come to my mind. She never ceased to amaze me with everything she did. I've said to Carl and Becky many times over the years that I always felt like Becky had to have had more time in her day than normal humans. Because she could accomplish so many things and make it look effortless, when you knew it took a tremendous amount of effort. Becky's parties and table settings gave off Pinterest vibes before Pinterest was a thing. Everything was always so beautiful and pretty, and the food was always amazing. She had so many different recipes and types of food she could make. It was such a great treat to have dinner with them. She had such a busy and important job being a trial lawyer, was busy raising her daughters, and I would see her come home after work with seemingly endless energy to get a workout in with a smile, and then start prepping to host a big dinner with no signs of stress. She could really do it all. As a young woman in college, it was inspiring to see Becky do so much by having her own amazing career, but also excelling at being a wife and mom. She was a fantastic role model and someone you hoped and prayed you could be a little like when you grow up. and as a middle-aged woman, I still hope that I can be a little like her when I grow up. She was an amazing mom and grandma, and was evident she loved and prided herself on being those things. When I worked for them, Erica was busy at school with choir and swimming, and Greta was in volleyball, and you could tell how proud and supportive Becky was of all their hard work. It was really special to be part of their lives. When Greta and Erica were graduating high school, getting to be at their beautiful graduation parties and seeing Becky and Carl's pride of their big life accomplishments. We also got to help out sometimes when Coco and Kendra were visiting with their small children, and it was so fun to see the effort Becky would put into making sure the grandkids had fun activities and toys to play with when they visited. You could see the joy Becky got from putting love and effort into the people around her. It was also incredibly special to get to witness Becky and Carl's strong bond and partnership. Becky was such a supportive and loving wife. Carl would have his econ classes over for dinner during the semester. And when he started his deals class, and former alumni would talk to the class, he'd have even more frequent dinners, sometimes twice a week. Becky supported Carl with throwing these parties and making delicious food for college kids. And she'd tell us great stories, and sometimes had to rein him in when he would push boundaries. It was very fun to hear them banter and laugh together. It was clear how much they love and respect, how much love and respect they had for each other. Becky and Carl's thoughtfulness and love for others extended far beyond their immediate family. When you worked for the family, they really cared about you and invested their time in you. Becky and Carl would host the Ink Girls and their families for dinner throughout college. They even hosted my family for brunch on the day I graduated from McAllister. Becky was so fun, she encouraged a lot of mimosa drinking that day. Becky and Carl have been so kind and loving to us. They show up for big events like bridal showers, weddings, baby showers. They've been known to go to McAllister weddings all over the U.S. and even international weddings. They've also frequently hosted an Ink Girl reunion where we get together and reminisce and keep in touch. I've heard so many stories from Ink Girls about things Carl and Becky have done for them. If they're having a tough time at college or needed guidance about something. They truly cared about us and the people around them. I feel so grateful and fortunate to have known Becky and her family. Being around Becky and Carl often feels like magic, where things are a bit more fun, and you think anything is possible. Becky was such a positive and upbeat person. Her energy was infectious, and she made everything a little brighter. I want to thank Carl and his daughters for sharing Becky with us. She was truly an amazing person, and we will all miss her dearly.